Hi, everyone, and thank you for listening to the Markeisha Hall podcast. I am Markeisha Hall, your host, IEP and parenting coach, and I'm here with Julie Wooten.
Hi.
We taught together in special education preschool. I don't know, seems like yesterday, but it was, yeah, that's how we
Making
met.
it.
Yeah, I know. And she is now ventured off into another sector of education. I don't know, what we
Yes.
call it, education? And I'm gonna let her, introduce herself.
Well, hello there, and thank you so much for having me. And oh my goodness, first of all, Markeisha is amazing, and I honestly would not be this person doing this job without all of the amazing people that I encountered in the school setting. Markeisha being a big one.
Oh, thank you.
A lot of how I work with my clients um, come from the modeling that I was so lucky to have in the classroom. So
Well,
that's
thank
first
you.
off.
You brought a lot to the table. I always say that, um
Don't you remember that first day though? You don't remember that first day that I thought I got punked because
Oh,
I
that's
was this I was this new like substitute teacher, decided to, become an aide, transferred schools. They're like, hey, yeah, we have, an opening in Mod Severe. I'm like, all right, what's Mod
mhm,
Severe? I walk in there and I'm like, oh no, 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 you don't mean me because
mhm,
I don't know. This is a wheelchair. I don't know what to do. Student with a feeding tube. I
yep,
don't know. Are you sure you want me? I'm a parent, but I don't know how to do this.
mhm.
It's fine. They're just like any other kid. And like you and Maria were like, it's gonna be okay. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yep.
I'm gonna mess something up. Um, but so yes, I came a long way from that first day, and I absolutely love my job. I love working with our kiddos, and now I get to do it in the best possible scenario, which is one on one with them in the home setting as an RBT, and an RBT, for those who don't know, that's
Yeah,
called a registered behavior technician.
mhm,
So when you sign up for ABA, and normally how it works in our company and most companies is that's run through your insurance.
mhm,
Um, and many of the insurance companies require that certification.
right,
So this is not just a county thing or a state thing, even. This is a national certification that guarantees pretty much that these services are going to be delivered in the same manner across the country so
mhm,
that we're all on the same page.
right,
Um, and so, most insurances do require that. I know that there's a lot of technicians now that maybe are not certified now, but the longer that you do work in the ABA field, that does become a necessity. So when you're looking for an RBT or a behavior technician,
mhm,
it is helpful to have somebody who already does have that certification. I actually just got my certification last September, and I studied a lot, and I have 15 years of experience,
right,
so there is a lot of information, a lot of science, a lot of data driven things that we are doing that may seem at the forefront like, oh, we're just playing, we're
mhm,
just having a conversation, but in reality, we're taking data, we're
yes,
contriving situations. So
right.
anyway, so that is what I'm doing nowadays, and I love it. And Markeisha and I have been talking about all the
Right,
ways that we extend, that we build on,
mhm,
that we practice the skills that should most likely be in their IEP
Mhm.
in the home setting because, as you know, the home setting is
Yes.
completely different
Yes.
than the school setting.
Right.
It's a big shock to me coming into a home setting
Mhm.
at first.
Right.
Um, I I was very naive, thinking I was going to bring in my token economy, and oh no, they're not going to get a snack until
Uh-huh.
that no, they're
Yes.
they're in their own home,
Yes.
so that is not going to work like that. And the other thing is the relationship with that person because
Mm. Glad you said
in I'm in their home 4 hours a day, guys.
that.
4 hours is a long time.
Mhm.
That means that we got to be on the same page.
Yes.
We have to get along. I have to trust them, and they
Mhm.
have to trust me, and
Yes.
that takes quite a while. So I get the whole first impression thing with therapists coming in. You're like, that's just not
Mhm.
going to work. But I myself can speak to that situation because there was a lot of times where I'm calling my supervisor going, "Oh no,
Yes.
they
Okay.
just enabled this child.
Mhm.
I spent all this time trying to
Right.
do this," and they're like, "Shh, relax.
Mhm. Right.
Like it's gonna be okay."
Right.
But that there is a huge piece of being in somebody's environment,
Mhm.
um, and them respecting what I do, and in turn, me respecting
Yes.
their space, their house, their rules, their culture, their
Yeah.
whatever that is. I'm the outsider,
Mhm.
so um, that does there's a lot of I think steps at the beginning before you can go, yeah, this isn't for me.
Mhm.
It may not be the therapist, it may not be the techniques, but just um, you know, advocating for
Yeah.
what your child needs.
Mhm.
And sometimes, as you can speak to in the school setting, parents are, first of all, overwhelmed.
Mm.
I would not be in their house if the behavior was stellar. Let's
Mhm.
just start there.
Mhm.
So, first of all, that's about letting go of things that you thought as a parent,
Right.
especially with your child that has autism.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter what the degree of it is. Parenting is difficult.
Yeah.
Let's just go
Yeah.
there. I don't care. I
Right.
don't care what you've got going on, but a
Julie's
lot.
speaking from experience. She also is a mother. She
Yes,
also has kids. She has also raised children. So
yes, and they are grown adults with responsible. They're responsible citizens and all of that. But yes, I think that is a big thing too for parents to kind of get over this obstacle of sometimes, depending on the age of the child,
Mhm.
they're still in denial. Is
Mhm.
this really what we're going to have to deal with? Is
Right.
this just a phase?
Mhm.
They never did this before.
Right.
And now all of a sudden there's these constant meltdowns.
Right.
And meltdowns affect everyone in your
Yes.
house, not
Yes.
just the child, not just the caregiver,
Mhm.
everyone, the siblings,
Yep.
the grandparents, everything. And it's emotional. It's
Mhm. Very.
emotional for the parents, and it's hard to get past those obstacles and think, I don't even know what this person is doing. Are they going to help me? And
Right.
and believe me, I've sat on the other side of that couch and listened to these parents just going, I don't know what to do.
Mhm.
Oh, whatever you're doing isn't working when you leave. And then
Mhm.
you leave, and I
Yes.
don't know what else to do.
Mhm.
And they're at the end of this rope.
Right.
And so
It
my
is a process. But I love that you said relationship building because it's very vulnerable. Um, Now that I'm speaking on the other side of it, Josiah did do early intervention. Yeah, early interventionists come to the house. And at first I was like, I don't need no early. I am an early interventionist. I have my master's in this.
Yes,
Um, but it's so vulnerable. Even though I know the benefit of it, I definitely believe in it. That's
right.
what I do. And I was like, well, I already know this stuff, but it's different when it's your kid because you can only take the meltdown for so
Yes,
long because then it's your baby and then you're like, you know what? He's just gonna get the Cheerios because I can't hear him say Cheerio, 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 and just start perseverating on something. I
right,
because I
right,
have to get to the baseball game. Oh, I'm getting choked up just remembering this. It's a very vulnerable spot to have someone come into your home and it's a relationship that has to be built and worked on. It's just like when you first meet someone. You hit it off with some people right away, but some people you're like you
right,
have to do a few lunches and then you find your groove and it's the same
right,
thing. Um, and it's about just being open and honest and understanding where both people are coming from. Parents feel very vulnerable. You're in my home, you're gonna see like my boys are sometimes Josiah would be doing sessions and the boys would be upstairs wrestling, screaming at each other, the
right.
siblings. Dre would come home in the middle of a session from work, and then that would throw Josiah off, and then it was just like, there was just lots of things going on because it is your home. So being um, if you're going in as a therapist, being in it, if you're going in as a parent, which we're pretty much talking to, just establishing those things and letting some of those things go. You just
You have to.
gotta let it go, or you're just gonna be
Yes,
always you're not gonna be able to get what you need from that, or even see if it is a good fit, because sometimes it's not a good fit, but you won't be able to see that because you're always just trying to be like, dinner's ready,
yes,
all the things that yeah, I don't want them to go and be like, oh my gosh, I was over at Marquisha's house. She her and her husband are special education teachers, but let me tell you what, the house was a mess. Your house is it happens sometimes, and you have to just
it
let
happens all the time
yes,
because
all the time.
what are you dealing with here? You're dealing with your child who's having issues with behavior.
Mhm.
So is that the first thing on your mind? No, no, it's not. And to be honest, what I'm thinking and what I'm looking at when you're talking about like the interruptions and the things that aren't going according to the perfection what model whatever
Right.
is I want to see these things.
Mhm.
I want to see the meltdowns.
Right.
How am I going to help you? How am I going to know what triggers that?
Yep.
And that, I'm sorry, but that takes a while too because that child has to feel comfortable with me.
Yes.
And a
Yes.
lot of the time, my client right now did not have a full on breakdown until I would probably say 3 months.
Mhm.
3 months of me coming 4 hours every day, 5 days a week, before he felt, and of course, he didn't do this at school either.
Right. Right.
This is somebody who expects I don't know what, but he did not feel comfortable, and and so it makes my job even more difficult if
Mhm.
I don't know these things.
Right.
What are the triggers? What
Yeah.
is the rhythm of your house
Mhm.
so that we can work on that?
Right. Right.
It's not going to do you any good if this is a sterile environment.
Yep.
And that's the other thing. My experience now as an RBT has only been in the home setting.
Mhm.
There's a lot of companies that also have a clinic.
Okay.
They do their sessions out of the clinic,
Mhm.
maybe two out of the home.
Mhm.
It depends on the company. My company only does home visits.
Okay.
So that's what I know, but I can imagine, yes, my job would be easier if my client came in and my room was all set up with all the toys, and
Mhm.
yes, that would be an easy session.
Right. Like the
Would
class,
it, would it be the most
classroom, control
beneficial?
the
Exactly.
environment. Yes.
How many times, Markeisha, did we say, "What is this the same kid that they
Yeah.
saw on the home visit?"
Right.
Because this is not the same kid that's sitting here in this class.
Right.
We're going, what? Why
Right.
didn't they just take into account both settings? Because it's the same kid,
Hmm.
but they're gonna behave
Yes.
completely different
Right.
at
Well,
home.
how many times we were like talk to the parents and they were like, "Oh, he's singing in circle time and he's just doing all the things," and they're like looking at us like, "Well, when we got home,
Yeah,
that when we were like, no way, there's just no way, there's
yeah,
no way," and then they were like, "Yeah, it is. That's how it's different at home," and I know that to be true now
yes,
because my baby and I was like, it's just yeah, a controlled environment, more controlled environment, and then and then we're done. But when you're at
right.
home, you're not done.
No,
You're not
no,
done.
you're not done. And like all of us adults, we put on our best face. We put
Mhm.
on our best face when we talk on the phone. Even that you better and that
Right.
hello. This is
Hey.
you
Yeah.
know, of course
You're
we
doing this.
oh yeah, all the time. Or I'm in the closet, but the kids kids do the same thing. And
Mhm,
especially kids that have that can't explicitly read cues.
mhm.
They don't understand. That's okay to, you know, whatever it is at school that's bothering them.
Right.
It's okay to say that, or it's okay to ask for help. All of these things,
Right.
and also, you know, a situation with my client at school. He had held in the meltdown thing. Lots
Mhm,
of times it didn't even last until they got home. He'd get in
mhm.
the car
Right.
and
There it
it,
goes.
yeah, Katie barred the door. But the staff at school didn't even know
Mhm.
until one day when this meltdown happened. They call mom. She says, yes, that's part of his autism. They're like, what autism?
Oh,
Alrighty then. There is a lot of
yes.
our kiddos in a gen ed setting.
Yes.
These We've been gone, guys. We've been
Right.
gone for 2 years, back and forth, virtual, whatever.
Mhm.
People are out sick.
Yep.
They haven't necessarily read the IEP.
Right.
They don't know because they have not seen this behavior at school.
Yes. Yep.
Haven't seen it, doesn't exist.
Yep.
So that is the other thing. We don't want that happening. We don't
Wow.
want situations, either setting,
Right.
you know, not indicative of this kid, because
Right.
how's the school going to help? How am I going to help if we
Right.
don't know? So,
Yes. Yes. It is, it is different across different settings, and that's why it's so important to, um well, when I was in the classroom working on what it's in the classroom, giving that all the information that's going on there, because if you can't go to Target, who cares that they that they have a problem? Like we work on transitions a lot when we were in preschool. That was like
right, right,
almost everybody's goals, transitioning from one activity to another. So if I'm like, oh
right,
yeah, and they can transition from circle time to the thing, they can transition and it's fine. But you can't, as a parent, and you have other kids, you can't go to Target or to church or to the
right,
park, then it's not meaningful for the family, which it should
exactly,
be meaningful for the family. It should be able to translate into your everyday life. That's really what the purpose
exactly.
is for, of the IEP, is to practice those things in the school, but for them to be transferred to the home. And so that's what I like about you going into the home or having in the home services, because then you get to see. I mean, I have very good friends that they were my students prior, but we are good friends now. I actually have a picture of him, my little Isaiah, downstairs but when his mom told me, and we knew each other as we went to church before church together. I had never seen
Oh,
him.
I know who you're talking about.
Yep. I never seen him melt down. I was like, girl, he never melts it until I went out with them. Because then we became friends and we went out on a I want to say it was an autism walk, something, some kind of fundraiser or autism walk. And I was eyes wide open because I had never seen it in the classroom. He never had it. And we were on that walk and he melted down and I was like, and she was looking at me like, I told you. And I was like, okay. That's when I realized like this, she's like, this is what we have to do outside of the classroom. And then it just really started to click even more that this is what's important is can you go to whatever your family culture is. Like some people like to stay home, but like for us, we travel a lot. It's important for him to get these skills so that we can go to his siblings. His siblings are in sports a lot.
Right. And you know what? That's part of my job too. And a lot of times I will be going out in the community. Now, you know,
I didn't know that. I mean, or parents might know that. I know that, but tell them about that.
So yes, there's been we for a lot of Fridays during the summer we would go to the park. And the park is a good place because it's still kind of a neutral thing. There's not too many expectations there, but yet it's working on those transition skills like, okay, it's time to be all done playing. It's time to go home. We have 5 more minutes, all those types of things in a different setting. My client played sports and I would go to his games because I want to see how he's behaving in a different setting, you know, not school, not home, someplace kind of not neutral, but you know, it's
well, you can't control when you're out. In your house, you still get to see the thing, but you still like control. Like they can still go to their room or get their favorite comfort. But when it's out, you can't control what the people that you don't know what they might say to trigger them or something that might, or a sound or a smell or so.
That, and you know, when we're talking about behavior in settings, there's also behavior with different people. And so, you know, even in the home setting, there's usually a good cop and a bad cop, right? I'm always a bad cop in my house. But you know, there's either a sibling or another parent or another relative that's in there that maybe when there's the first sign of struggle and you hear that telltale grunt or scream or whatever that is that goes, uh-oh, a meltdown's on the way. Let's just give it to him. I don't want to deal with it today. There you go.
Right.
So you've got one parent where they're being reinforced for their behaviors. And then one parent that's trying to unravel all the things that have contributed to the behavior. So that sometimes there's a lot of butting heads. It's hard. It's emotional. It doesn't look the same for everybody, and you know, it's rough that way. It's rough when, let's say, there's a teacher who not very on it, and they know they can get away with it. Duh.
Yes.
You know, our kiddos are smart. They sense. In fact, I think they sense a lot more than a typically developed kid. To be honest, they're intuitive, so they know they can get away with that with that teacher or that whomever.
Yes.
We don't want that. We want to be able to generalize these skills to everyone. I don't care if you're going to reinforce the behavior or not. That skill needs to happen regardless. Eventually.
Yes.
Eventually. It takes a while.
Yes, it does. And then I know that there's like behaviors that are like, oh, we're on top of this, and then comes a different one.
It morphs into something else, doesn't it? It's like, okay, well, that's new. Where did that come from? Well, that's because he stopped doing that, you know?
I know over the pandemic, for us, there we saw some behaviors that we did not that were when he was 2, 3, 4 that we just hadn't seen until the pandemic. And we were like, oh, that's back. we we had checked that off the goals list that was checked off 2 years ago. It's back because
Right.
of, you know, who
Stress.
knows what triggered it, to tell you the truth. But we
Right.
were just like, we thought we had stopped hair pulling. That was his thing that had came back, which is very, we patches of hair missing. It came back during the pandemic because he definitely was stressed. That did not work out well for him. But just
Right.
because the behavior does go away doesn't mean that it can't come
No,
back and need to be reworked on in a different way. It's not like, oh my gosh,
it's
that
gone forever.
my therapist, it didn't work because it came back. It can came back. And just think, when you're stressed,
Right.
like, you're like, you know what to cope with. But if your
Right.
stress gets too high, then you're like, you can fall back into like what that worked. Like, even though the skills, like he knows what to
Oh
do,
yeah.
not to do it. But when he got to his 10, then he went back to what was easiest.
We have default mode.
Yes,
All of
that's
us
good.
have default
Mhm,
mode.
that's good. Mhm,
And it takes a lot of practice and time. And I would say too, like, yes, there are these behaviors, but that does not signal regression. It doesn't
right.
signal a lack of anything on the child's part or on the therapist's part,
Mhm,
because these things are fluid.
yes.
And what I notice is, like, we're on a streak right now, and I'm like, I love it, but
Mhm,
what's coming up?
mhm,
Because there was a big chunk of time where there were meltdowns every session,
mhm,
every day, every week, and the parents are like, I can't do this anymore.
mhm,
I cannot.
mhm,
And
mhm.
I cannot have him eloping every time,
Yes.
whatever. And
It's
that was hard. It's
yeah,
hard. It's
it
super
is.
hard. It's super stressful. And there I would say what worked for us was taking a step back, maybe taking not a break, because we don't want the avoidance, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Those four functions of behavior. There's four of them. Escape being a big one. We don't want them to think they've escaped this, but we zoomed. We zoomed for the majority of the session, cut down on the in person, did
Mhm,
that for a little while.
mhm.
Gradually, it got better. But again, there are these snags, um,
Yeah,
either right after progress or right before progress,
right.
and they're rough.
Yeah,
They're very rough. And
right,
so we kind of got to take the behaviors with a,
right.
it's on a continuum,
Yep.
folks. Like,
I like that you said fluid, because that is a good word, to think that there's just ebbs and flows. And I think the expectation, um, or your want as a parent, is that I want my child to be happy. Really, that's the end. At the end of the day, it's not I want them to behave, or I want them to do what I want. It's really, I want my kid to be happy and to be
right,
able to enjoy his siblings, or hang out at the park and just have friends. That's really at the bottom of it. So it's really like, I want this fixed, and I don't and once it's fixed, I want it to stay fixed. And that, even
yes,
parenting a neurotypical child, that's not the case. Right? It's not the case. You're like,
it's not the case.
What
And
when did you start getting that attitude? We've been doing this for years, and now you're just being more defiant, or um when you're talking with your neurotypical kids, like, where did this come from? Like, you've always been so amicable. Now they're just not.
right,
It's just with kids in general, but it's
yeah,
especially when you have a child that has a disability, because you're like, want to I want to fix it because they
Yeah,
already have so many obstacles. I want to fix it, and then when you feel like you can't, then it's just, or that it was, and then you're like, "Yay, they're doing it." And then you feel like it goes down instead of thinking like, "Oh my gosh, I am doing something wrong." So I
right.
broke it, it was fixed. I'm not doing what Julie taught me because it was fixed. So we stopped doing on that. And we start working on this, and now it's broken, and it's my fault that we're
Right.
here. And you have to
Or
work
my
on
fault.
or their
And that's, I think there's this misconception that, I have some sort of magic wand
Mhm.
or set of solutions to XYZ. And yes, we have interventions and we
Yeah.
have strategies and
Mhm.
we have, you know, the first thing we're going to do is figure out what function of that behavior and
Mhm.
then try and replace it with something, you know, positive. But I don't either. And we're
Mhm.
going to have to throw stuff at
Yep.
this whatever, see what sticks, do that again, and come at it with all angles. And guess what? That takes time.
Yep.
I don't have, hey, I'm going to stop your kid from running out the door and around the block
Mhm.
in 2 weeks. Why can't I do it in 2 weeks? Well, because he's done this now for a whole year
Mhm.
and it's been reinforced
Mhm.
one way or the other, and it's serving a function of behavior.
Right.
So to undo, I would rather people think of my job as unraveling
Mm.
rather than I'm unraveling stuff and
Mhm.
then giving you more strength. That's all
Mhm.
that is.
Mm. Okay. I like that. I like
That's all that is, because honestly, like, that string's still there.
yes.
He may get to the end of it at a point and do the same thing. And
Right.
maybe it seems like we're back to square one, but we're not. It's
Right.
not going to take us as long
Mhm.
to get back to where we were.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's,
I like that.
I think that's the goal of, you know, trying to work on these skills, is that yes, we we all go through default, but once we hit default, what kind of skills do we have to get back to
Yes. That's good.
self-regulation? And
Right.
we all have that.
We
We
all
all
have
have
to.
to do that.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, a
Yep.
vacation or a spa day or I don't know, but
Yep. Hanging out with your girlfriends, be like, "Hey, hey,
right?
girl, what's we? I need a happy hour or something."
Yes,
With adults, like something that you can go to. So that's good because everyone. I like the idea. Everyone's going to get to their point. Everybody does as adults, and it's easier for neurotypical kids to be like, okay, these are the things I can do. But teaching our kids that have disabilities that you will hit a default, you will hit this, but once you do, these are the things that you can do, and teaching that explicitly, like you said.
right,
We were talking about that earlier with Joe, and I was like, yeah, he just needs to continue to be taught that skill at its simplest level for him right now. He's only
right,
in first grade. Like, this is black and this is white. And if you hit this, then you can do this. And it can't be too many steps. And so then once he
right,
knows, okay, when I get frustrated at school, we have to say it to him every morning. That's what we started doing. And we just started with one. You can take a deep breath. We're up to three choices that he can make now that he's actually able to do. Um, well, repeat to his teacher, but now he's actually doing so. But that's what works for
yeah,
him. It was easier for us to connect because so now he'll be like, I did get frustrated at school, but I took a deep breath and I went to he has a section where he can go to focus on his work better. In the classroom, he was like, and I went to my spot and it was better. And I was like this just happened. I know, right? The beginning of
I
the year
mean,
is like meltdowns up under the table, and then he would be up under the table, and then it was like taking off your shoes, or he would start to be like anything. I'm cold, um, but he wasn't cold. It was August and it was hot. It was just a lot of things because he didn't have those things, and we didn't know what that looked like for him because he hadn't been in classroom because of the pandemic. So we
right,
had to work stuff out, and I was like, "Well, try this," and the teacher was like, "Try this," and we're like, "That didn't work. That escalated. Okay, so let's see what's all the steps
It's
that you are
different.
doing with parents, and it just takes like literally like we threw this, we're like, that does not work. That's not
Right,
working. Let's try
right.
this. Okay, let's throw that out and put this there. It's a lot of trial and error. And then sometimes when
Yes,
it just booms, we just had his annual and it just was like when he came home and told me that, I just because he hadn't before. And I was just like, okay, it's
yes.
been since August and it's now
Those
January.
are it's
It
so exciting to see something
was
like
it
that
is.
that you worked so hard on and the
Yes.
child has worked so hard
So
and then they put it into practice and you're just like,
yes. Yeah,
yes,
6 months.
yes.
6 months of
Oh,
a
so
meltdown in the classroom with his friends, the kids in the classroom. They're used to it now, but at first they were like, "What is going on?"
it's a whole different layer because I feel like it's even harder layer when, they're in a gen ed classroom
Yeah,
because the teacher may or may not have explained this to the rest of the kids. The kids may or may not have an idea of why he does this or when he does this or what can I do. It's a whole thing, but the expectations are definitely different. And
yes,
I feel like for our kiddos that a lot of these things have to be taught explicitly.
yeah,
It's
and just in steps.
a lot.
Yeah,
Yes,
just in steps and in
too.
different settings. Like, we literally had to practice, and what I got into the practice of and learned actually from our early interventionists years ago is talking out even when I'm doing something, like, so he can hear and see how I process getting the cereal out of the pantry. So now that looks like at home, she was like, because we talked to him. I know a lot of stuff, but I'm trying to tell the parents because I get this a lot of like, yeah, IEP coach. Girl, stop. You have this in the classroom, but it's different at home when it's all I have 4 kids, husband,
Right,
I
right.
have a job. Sometimes I'm tired. I'm at home. I don't want to talk through, to be honest, every part of my day so that he can get it. I know that sounds terrible, but I love my baby.
No,
But it's
it's
the truth. And so, but she was
normal
like,
life.
practice and choose what you're gonna do. So you're not feeling like you still want to be their parent too. You don't want to always be like, I'm always just doing this. So for us,
Right.
we started with breakfast, and I'd be like, okay, ooh, I'm hungry. I think I want to go into the pantry to see if there's any snacks that I might like. And then, so that even though I'm not taking him with me, I'm just walking through my day. Cause that is what you say, right? If you're sitting there, you're like,
Right.
dude, I'm thirsty. I'm going to go to the refrigerator. I'm going to browse and see what I want. Oh, dang, there's no more Mountain Dew. Okay, I guess I'll have fruit punch. Do I want ice? Yeah, I want the crunchy ice. Those are the things that we think in our heads, but for our kids,
Right.
modeling it and be like, okay, oh, I'm thirsty. So the next time when he's thirsty, so he started out just opening the refrigerator and just looking in it. And we were like, at first, Dre was like, close the refrigerator, get out of the refrigerator.
Right.
I was like, he's
My grown sons still do that. So
he'd be like, that's how he started. And I was like, oh, he's just doing what he sees all of us doing, and we're just talking it out. So yeah, lots of modeling and just the things that you feel like come easy to you. Like when you're hungry, you just go downstairs. But what is the process that you are going through to get you
exactly.
downstairs, to get your Mountain Dew, to get your crunchy ice, and to sit back on the thing is things that they need to be able to see and hear constantly. And yeah, it's
You're
a lot.
very right. We do also a lot of role playing too,
Mm,
which my client loves because
mhm.
I'm usually the brother that, he gets to whatever, but that helps a lot too. Like,
Good.
hey, I'll pretend I'm so and so and you're so and so. So I'm gonna say, hey, like no, you can't butt in front of me in line, or, whatever the situation is, and then reverse it
Right.
and have him role play
Mhm.
how he would react. And then we do that a lot, and that gives him the tools because, in effect, I am modeling, but it's a
Yeah,
more
you get to see.
subtle approach, and he can show me what the language looks like. And honestly, that's the same language he uses. Like,
Mhm. That's good.
because it's a script that is comfortable because we've talked about it. So, like, it's only a little deal. It's okay. We can go on to something else. And that's his phrase, that his catchphrase. Like,
Yes.
I can ask for a delay, but if mom says no, I still have to do
Yeah.
it. Like,
Yep. Yep.
hey, it works. It
Yep.
works. And
Yep.
so long as those scripts are, what you want them to be, it does the trick. So
I love to watch you talk about your client because you're just cheesing from ear to ear. Every time
oh,
you bring him up, you're just
I love
cheesing.
love him. How can you not? I spend so much time with him day after day after day, and I have been so lucky to see, like, the progress. I haven't even been with him a year yet. It'll be a year in April, but
Right.
oh my goodness, the progress he's made. And sometimes I'll say, "Hey, remember when I first started coming and I'd bring like a bunch of sensory things, and
Mhm.
him and his brother would both want to do it, and I'd have to set the timer because they didn't know how to wait." I'm like,
Mhm.
"Remember when you couldn't wait? Remember that?" He's like, "I never did that." I'm like, "Yeah, you did." So it's exciting. It
That
really
is.
is.
Well, I like that, and I can see that, and hopefully when they can hear or see the, going back to, like, just building a relationship, it's clear that you guys have done that, and that relationships, when you have a therapist coming to your home, takes time and communication,
It
and
really does.
and it's vulnerable on both sides because you're going in
Yes.
and parents are wanting you to fix it, right?
Yes.
That's got to be like feel like pressure, to be like, so just not showing up to the first date in a wedding dress. I heard that somewhere. So you're not gonna just be
I
like, hey,
love that.
poof, and everything works out. It's gonna
Yeah,
be it's gonna take time to develop. It takes time to develop relationships.
it
Um,
really
and
does.
and also for the parents listening, not to when you have someone coming in to help you, not letting your guards down. And I know it's hard, trust me, because I had early intervention in my house, and I was like, they normally don't yell. Excuse me, let me go upstairs. I'm going upstairs. Don't place downstairs. Therapist. Can't hear what it's distracting him. Come back downstairs. Hey,
I
yeah,
know. No.
boys, So just being like, this is how it is. They
It
are
takes time for that to happen too.
right. And just being like, this is knowing that they want to see it. You have to be able to see it to help intervene. And know
Exactly.
it is a process, and it's not just going to be the wedding day.
Exactly.
It's
It
not gonna be the
might
wedding.
not ever be the wedding day, to be
Right.
honest.
Right.
Depending on what we're working on. But yeah, it takes it it really does, and it takes those awkward moments
Mhm.
where you've got a conflict. I'm lucky because I have such good support. I've got
Mhm.
my team
Mhm.
behind me. I've got a supervisor and then a BCBA on top of that.
Mhm.
So I have the full support of a team when I maybe can't see the forest through the trees,
Mhm.
so to speak,
Mhm.
or parent doesn't feel comfortable with me explaining or asking or whatever. There's a layer there,
Mhm.
and so you know ultimately I'm the one there delivering the service,
Mhm.
but there's also layer upon layer, and
Mhm.
if those situations arrive, then a team can address those, and a team can work on. The other thing is that, in my company, I can't speak for other companies, but
Right.
um, my company does have parent training, and
Okay.
therefore parent has goals too.
Mhm.
So, I'm taking data on all of my goals and running them throughout the session. In turn, the parents have their own goals. So I don't get involved with that. That's not my position.
Okay. Uh-huh.
But the supervisors, the BCBAs,
Mhm.
they will do the parent training. They will intervene. Sometimes they might intervene with the school, with the teacher, with the services being administered or not being administered in the school, so that
Mhm.
we can build on those to see what's going on there too. Again, I'm strictly delivering the service in the home. So, the parents have have resources there. They have a layer of people that, can, address their concerns, whatever that is. So
Yeah, having a team is important.
it
And
really is. It
yeah.
really
Yeah, because you don't always see it. Sometimes you need someone to be like, "Oh, you actually it is making progress." And even that you as like you said, as a therapist, you're like, this isn't working." And then someone can look at the data and be like, "Actually, it is." And they can bring you back just like you were saying with your
right.
client. Remember when you had to use the client, they're like, "No." You're like, "Yes." And so having someone
Yes.
look at what you're doing too and be like, "Well, you are making it is working." Remember when you first started, you'd be like, oh yeah." Even if it's little increments.
Indeed, and they can also look, and I have a tendency to prompt a lot. That's just in my nature. It's what years of working with severely impacted students,
Yep.
and somebody can look and go, yeah, no, you don't need to be prompting. Let him do it. Let him get
Yep.
a little bit uncomfortable, a
Mhm.
little bit frustrated, because to be honest, working with somebody 4 hours a day, 5 days a week for that long, you get used to what they're going to do.
Right.
And you automatically, just like a parent,
Yep.
interpret that and go, oh,
Yep.
there's a meltdown coming.
Yep.
So I'm going to give him an option.
Yep.
No, his goal is to figure out the option. You've already
Mhm.
got it,
Mhm.
you've already practiced it. So
Yep. That's good. Yep. I'll be like, I'm just gonna give him the Cheerios because I have to get to the game and then this meltdown is gonna take us back and I still have
yeah,
to get out. So you just, default back to you're like
exactly,
and
exactly.
it
Yep.
does happen. And you know what, parents, when that does happen, because it will, because you got to get out the door, you got to do something, you're just tired. It's okay because tomorrow's another day and you can work on that or your therapist give you skills like, okay, well, what happens when I do reinforce it, but I didn't mean to. Though you're not going to be perfect. Sometimes
Exactly.
it happens. You just, I think going back to the skills, even for the parents, um, going back and saying, going back and having the skills to be like, okay, this is going to happen. Sometimes you won't give them the Cheerios. You're tired. You're not feeling well. You got to get out the door. Things happen. Don't be so hard on yourself either. Be more fluid and be like, I did give them the Cheerios the other day, but tomorrow, I'm going to, maybe 20 minutes before. I remember Julie said, maybe if we have, we have to get out the door before, and I know he's going to want the Cheerios, maybe there's a practice that can happen 30 minutes before so that we have more of a buffer time. There's always time to reflect and to get back on track.
Right? And you know what, Markeisha, to be honest, I don't know when you said it or in what post, but one time somewhere you said it's not worth it for him to be dysregulated for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
That stuck with me because so often we get in the groove of like, I'm going to push and push and push. And at some point, that doesn't make any sense anymore.
Mhm.
It does not. And sometimes it's our agenda, sometimes it's whatever. It doesn't matter. But
Mhm.
I I live by that now because
Mhm.
there is definitely a time to push and a
Right.
time to let's see what happens when, and there's a time to back off and
Right.
say
Yeah.
it's not going to happen
Yeah.
today, and
Right.
that's okay because
Okay.
it's not worth it for the rest of the day to be, and depending on how hard is it for the child to become regulated again. Let's,
Mhm.
they're all not at the same level.
Right.
So
Right.
that is important. That's
Mhm.
a really important piece.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. That was on Joe going to school some days. Some days it was like, you know what? He was home yesterday. And we had the IEP, so he got to peep in. Like we were doing Zoom, and they were like, "Is he feeling? Is he?" They thought he was sick or something. You know, it's the vid. So I was like, "No, he's just it was a rough morning, and we just thought that Netflix was going to work out better today than to force it." And then he's going, "You're going to have to deal with it at school." Which some days we just do push through, but you know what that was, and yesterday wasn't that
Right.
day. It's it's okay. He missed his therapies for yesterday at school and a couple other things, but it's okay. And today was, a better day. So that is something
Yeah.
that I learned along the way. Well,
Me
I
too.
fogged up all your time on
Oh,
this
no,
Friday
no worries. No worries.
because you guys, what you don't know is that she was on time, and then I start chit chatting about Joe. And we just talked. So before this hour that I've hogged up, I was already hugging up a good 45 minutes before, just chit chatting, and
Okay.
it was
Okay.
fun. It was fun working together,
I
and
know.
I'm glad that we get to still connect.
Yes.
Um,
I'm a big fan, you guys. I'm a big Martina Hall fan.
oh,
She
friend, friend.
always says that I'm like I'm preaching on her side, but you know, I
Julie
can
be
do
dropping the
that.
knowledge. She be dropping truth bombs.
You know what? I guess when you're so passionate about
Mhm.
something and it just it doesn't stop when I put down my
Yep.
software data,
Right.
stuff.
Right.
I
I
so
know.
anyways,
I know. That's why we can probably be on here for the whole day. We could just keep on
I
talking
know.
about this. We do. I do love this work, and now I have my baby. Who knew, right? Who
Who knew
knew?
all those years ago?
Who knew?
Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
I just
It
had the
was
tall three
destiny.
back when I was in the classroom, but I'm very grateful to have had those experiences, and
Me
um,
too. Me
yeah.
too.
So, well, it's anything you want to say to the people listening before we head off into our Friday?
I think I've said that
Yeah.
and more. You guys are doing great though. Can I just put that out there because what wherever you're at right now, I literally have so much respect
Mm,
for the parents that do this day in and
yeah.
day out and try with all their heart to do
Mhm.
what's best for their kid because really any parent anywhere that's what we all want.
Right.
it,
Right.
it is
It
at the end
is.
of the day, and I really respect you guys. Like you're doing great even if it doesn't feel like it, even
Mm,
if some days feel like a dumpster fire.
mhm.
Still great.
See, somebody need to hear that today, Julie.
I hope
So
so. I hope so.
I told you guys she'd just be dropping the nuggets. Thank you so much again, and thank you guys all for listening. And this is going to be the end of our broadcast for today.
Happy weekend all.
Yes.